I knew that the next time I sit for this exam, it has to be the last time. As in, I need to sit for this exam and I need to pass it. So that's where I decided I was going to make very drastic changes in my life. Hi guys, I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Yanga if you are seeing my face for the first time. And yeah, in this video, I basically wanted to chat to you guys about some of the sacrifices that I had to make in order to ensure that I do qualify as a CASA. I made a video not too long ago about part of my journey relating to my CTA. And if you guys haven't watched that video, then check it out. But in this specific video, I'm not necessarily going to be breaking down all the pieces of the puzzle with regards to the journey of qualifying. But in a nutshell, I'm going to be zooming in on an aspect of the journey. So once I finished my CTA, I was someone who was extremely confident. I thought to myself, I've overcome the biggest sort of part of this journey, according to a lot of people, and that was passing CTA. So when it came to writing what is formerly known as the ITC, when it came to writing that, I was pretty confident. And I think there's such a danger. Confidence is important, but being overly confident is a bit dangerous. And I was somewhat overly confident because I thought, this shouldn't be too difficult. And that's where the mistake I made was. So for a little bit of context, with regards to the first board exam, you only have a limited amount of attempts to write the exam. So after you've written 6 times, you have to go back and redo CTA, and no one wants to do that, right? Kudos to people who do, but no one wants to do that. You want to get your board exams out of the way. And that was obviously my approach as well. So when I was going on in my ITC journey, I sat for the first paper and I didn't pass. I had not necessarily prepared as much. So I knew that, okay, if I just study a little bit harder the next time, of course, I'm going to, pass my ITC exam. But one thing you want to take into account in life, in general, whenever you are trying to achieve something or whenever you are working on something, is there are going to be variables in your life that are going to come into the picture that you could not have imagined they're going to come into the picture. You might lose someone that you really, really love. And now you're having to grieve and you're having to try and write an exam. You might go through something that is completely traumatizing or completely, leaves you feeling not like yourself, but at the same time you have an exam to write in the next 2 weeks. And these are the type of variables that I didn't necessarily foresee in my specific journey. In one of my ITC sittings, I couldn't even write that exam. So I voluntarily decided I wasn't going to write this exam because of the things that were happening in my personal life. But Psycho doesn't care that your personal life is on fire, okay? It's just counting that, okay, Yanga didn't sit again for the exam. Let's count it. It's another strike, okay? So at some point, I knew that the next time I sit for this exam, it has to be the last time. As in, I need to sit for this exam and I need to pass it. So that's where I decided I was going to make very drastic changes in my life. And the changes basically were embedded in my routine. I decided to adopt a specific routine that I'd never adopted before, but I had an idea that this was going to work. The first thing I decided to do was to extend the hours in my day, and I decided I was going to wake up at 3:30 in the morning. Okay. So the reason why I decided I was now going to wake up much earlier is because in all the years previously, I obviously was a full-time student, but now I'm having to juggle work. I'm having to juggle that with studying, and I actually did struggle with that. So I thought if I can just have a little bit more time in the morning, I am a morning person. If I could just have a little bit more time in the morning, it'll give me more of an opportunity to sort of focus on my book. So I'd wake up at 3:30. I'd switch on all the lights in my apartment, literally all of the lights, so that I could have as much light as possible to wake myself up. But I'd wear my gym gear, and I'd wash my face, I'd brush my teeth, and around 4, I would be at my desk. But on like 4 on the dot, I was studying and I was not playing. I also made a video about being off of social media because there were things I needed to do. This this video gives context to that video where I wanted to not have any distractions. I didn't want to know what was happening in the world. I literally just wanted to zoom in on this one goal. So I deleted all of my social media platforms. You couldn't find me anywhere. At some point, I wasn't even on WhatsApp. That's how serious this lock-in was at that time. And so there I am studying 4 to 6. That was focus time for me. It wasn't play time. I wasn't distracted. I was focusing. I also had a technique with regards to how I was approaching my studies, but video for another day, story for another day. Then from 6, I would literally go for my run. So one of the things that I knew I had to not compromise on was exercising. And I really could make a separate video on this where I talk to how that part of my life, working out, literally saved my life. But I did not deviate from this at all. It was part of my routine because I knew that working out helps with clearing my mind, helps me getting out of my mind because sometimes I overthink, and that creates an anxious sort of environment for me, and it was just not going to be compatible with the thing that I wanted to achieve. So moving my body was a non-negotiable, right? Doing something on a daily basis that makes you feel uncomfortable is really, really important if you are working on something really big. And then after I would come back from my run, I'd obviously shower, get ready. This was also during COVID times where a lot of companies were doing remote working. So I was able to also work on refining this routine because I didn't necessarily have to factor in going into the office and doing this and doing that. Anyway, when it was time to work, I would give work my undivided attention so that I could knock off as early as possible. And then there's a period of time after I'm done working where I'm just having some downtime or whatever the case may be. However, something else that I had to sacrifice was being reckless with how I interact with my phone, which is again why I left social media. So the only way really to reach me, let's say if you wanted to jump on a call with me, is I would have a specific time window where I would say, okay, between 5:30 and 6:30 or 7, I'm happy to chat. You can call me, we can catch up. And this was also with regards to, like, if I wanted to reach out to family, whatever the case may be, it was really, really hectic. But here's the thing. If someone was trying to, let's say you're trying to call me at 8:30, that's my focus time, as in that is the time of the night where I'm studying. So I wasn't deviating from that, unless it's obviously an emergency, which rarely it was ever the case. So that was one of the sacrifices that I had to make, where I had to be so selfish with my time, and not be spontaneous with the type of, let's say, calls I was getting. I was very, very invested in this routine. So just to summarize, the one thing that I needed to make sure I sacrificed was being wishy-washy with my routine. I needed to know exactly what I was doing every single day. What am I doing at 6 a.m.? What am I doing at 7 a.m.? What am I doing at 10 a.m.? I needed to have a lot of structure. So if you're working on something and you don't have a routine, you don't have a structure, your plans or your intentions are going to fall through the cracks because there's no sense of structure for you to actually just do something without having to think about it. And also, waking up at 3:30, it's not something that I do right now. It's not something I've done since that specific period of my life. I did it then because there were exceptional circumstances that required it. But waking up at that time completely changed my life. Completely changed my life because I didn't even know that I could wake up at 3:30. And so you want to ask yourself those type of questions. What is it that I'm willing to actually give up if I want to go on this journey? Obviously, you don't have to wake up at 3:30, obviously. um, but one thing I will say is the things that we want to attain in life will always have a price attached to them. And the better you are at defining what that price is, the higher of a probability you have of achieving that specific thing. So I knew at the time that to be a CA, I'm going to have to sacrifice. When it comes to my comfort zone, I'm just going to have to sacrifice that. And I'm glad that I did now, because thankfully I was able to achieve the goal. But I think it's so important to speak about the journey, because then people get context and they understand that, oh, okay, this person really had to put in the hours. They had to put in intentionality. And yeah, it also just shows you the type of person that you need to become to be in a specific place. So that is all I do have for you guys today. I do hope that you guys have enjoyed it, and I hope that it's given you guys a little bit of context on the type of sacrifices that one has to make in the background to achieve anything that they want to achieve. And yeah, I hope that you guys have enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in my next video.